From capturing memories to connecting with others, there is so much to love about photography. Now with cell phones, people are taking more and more pictures. And if you have a horse, your camera roll is probably full of shots featuring your favorite equine. So for this Heather on the Spot, we brought in photographer Stacey Hofman for some advice on getting that perfect portrait. Tell me first, how did you even get into photography?
Well, I really started, if I go back to my college years, I have a degree in animal science, so I have studied all of the species and just fell in love and telling the story of animals and connection with agriculture, as well as connection with food and recreation as well. And so I have a son who is now in college, and when he started baseball as all the way back in T-ball, I just really loved photography and telling the story of going around the bases and how you can make that interesting, and I incorporated it into my everyday life, telling about agriculture as well.
Oh, that's such a fantastic story. I love that. Well, you can tell you're passionate about it. So for our viewers who, they don't have the same equipment that you do, obviously, we're pulling our phones out and just, at a moment's notice, or, even saying, oh, I'm going to take pictures of my horses today. We need some tips. And I feel like the first thing we should start out with is safety, obviously. Isn't that the first rule?
Sure. When we're dealing with animals that weigh a whole lot more than we do, we have to take safety into consideration. And so understanding that horses have flight zones and not getting right up behind them, and working that. So when I'm out in the field in a band, with a band of brood mares, I'm looking to see what their behavior is like. If I'm in a safe environment, where is my getaway if I need to get out in a dangerous situation? And then also reading the horses as they're moving. So, I was at a farm last week with a bunch of foals and mares, and, they were not sure of me being in the field, but as soon as I was able to dip down a little bit, not make a whole lot of eye contact, they all started coming forward. And understanding that there's usually the bossy mare in the field, and knowing how to take care of her and make sure that she's not coming too close to me. So keep your eyes open on your environment. Know how safe you feel in the environment. They are still animals. They can cause some damage to you, and they're unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. So just keeping that in the back of your mind.
How about sunlight and, exposure on the horse to make it look the best that we can make them look in pictures?
Right. So getting up early in the morning or late at night is actually, right before sunset is the best time, or an hour after sunset is really a good time to take pictures of animals. The lighting is just golden, and that's why it's called the golden hour. When you're up early in the morning, there's less shadow happening, and so you can get an honest picture of the animal. When you're out in the middle of the day, which is typical for most of us, we have our phones on us and we want to take a picture at any time that we see something beautiful or interesting to us. And so it's making sure that we're not backlighting the animal, so you don't want the sun to come from the back side, because you're not going to have the picture that you want. When we're working with stallions or mares in a field that are nice and glossy, we want to look at the shoulder and have the shine on the shoulder, so that we get the angle, the neck that we're looking for, to the curve. And then we want to look about athleticism. Think about what is that animal supposed to really be doing. And so catching them in the normal behavior that they have, or if they're taking going cantering across the field, how does that look? And then the connection with people. I'm always looking to tell the story, so whether it's a connection between the mare and the foal, or the connection between the rider or the driver, what is that looking like? I was able to take some photos this morning and had an awesome time looking at a whole family practicing, and even down to the grandson, and just the joy that that family had being out on the track together. And so that's telling the story. It may not always be about the horse, but it's about the connection to the industry.
That's absolutely beautiful, by the way. That's really, yes, I've never even thought about that. I just wanted to get a pretty picture of my horse, and I'm not even thinking about, yes, the connection and the story. Well, a picture tells 1,000 words, yes. Right? Yeah, and that's what it's telling.
And there's so much research out there on the human-animal bond, especially with horses and dogs, and so it's easier to capture that photograph.
Now, speaking of humans and horses, how do we get them to get their ears up? What kind of things can we do to make that picture just have that little something about it that we think is perfect?
You know, it's definitely having the ears up is important. You know, if you have a mare out there with their ears down and they can be a little bit flighty, they're not beautiful. They're just, you know, being sort of sourpusses. So making some noises, you know, a little clicking noise if you can get their attention, or you know, kissing noises to get them going, and maybe even just a little flitter of your hand, you know, not to scare them, but just attention to draw them towards that motion. Will do the time. And then sometimes just waiting for the perfect photo. You know, sometimes I'm just waiting and waiting, being quiet, observant, with my camera in focus, ready to snap when it's ready. The other thing is making sure, you know, when we're taking a picture, everyone wants to go up close and get that photo. Sometimes it's taking it further back and realizing that you can crop later. A little bit safer, but you never know what is going to happen on the outside. The other piece, everyone's working with their phones, and they all have them in what I call portrait mode, so it doesn't look like your TV. It's harder to take a good photo of a horse in a field like that. You know, if they're right up at their barn stall, that may be something more appropriate. But if you're out in the field, having that landscape behind, giving the setting that you're in, really also tells the story.
Why don't you wish all of our amateur photographers a little luck out there?
Definitely get out and take some photos this season. It's a great opportunity to share about the industry, whether it's about horses, it's about standardbreds, racing. Get out and take a picture. We would love to see those amateur photographers getting some experience and sharing about the great industry in Delaware.
Thank you so much, Stacey, for those suggestions. What a great interview. Now, all right, all you shutter bugs out there, get to clicking and capturing moments with your big four-legged friends. Happy snapping!